Are you someone who's waiting and kind of anticipating this perfect moment where you'll have full clarity and full understanding of what you are meant to do in the world? So this could be your dreams, your ambitions, the things that you feel drawn towards, but feel a little bit scary. Like you want to write that crazy fantasy book, but oh, if only your writing skills were a little bit better. If you just work at it a little longer, or you don't have the names of all the characters perfectly aligned. Or you want to release a music album, but you're just not sure about that song in this, and the cover art that you want to use, whatever it happens to be, right? Like, are you just somebody who's waiting until everything is perfect, until you start acting on your dreams and acting on your ambitions and just kind of like your calling, right? Whatever you feel called to in life. Yeah, and you may like I was that way, so I still kind of am. I'm very much in the beginning of stepping out of that zone, but for a really long time I was stuck in this space and kind of wanting to do this recording videos and talking about things that interest me and just a little bit about my life, my things that I've realized. And, I can't tell you how many hundreds of videos or podcast episodes or whatever I've created in my head. So obviously I've never sat down and recorded these, but they just kind of happened. And like, this is a poll that I've had for years now, and I've only just started doing it. And for a really long time, I thought, yeah, I'm just waiting until I've lost some weight, or until I have a better camera, or oh, it's just not the right time in my life right now. I've got all this work or this stuff to do, or I'm just very, very tired, or worse, when I was feeling down, it's like, oh, I'm just too lazy. I have no ambition. I just I was kind of getting down on myself. But there's something that I came to realize, and that I'm hoping I can help you realize as well as I ramble on today. And that is that it's not always necessarily what we think that is holding us back. So, yeah, let me explain that. So let's go back to this concept from Carl Jung called individuation. So individuation is sort of the work of a lifetime. So it is something that may start at some point, whether it's you stumbling upon this concept of individuation, or just kind of it happening naturally, just because you're just naturally led to that by circumstances and things happening in your life. But it's basically the idea of becoming whole again, becoming a whole person. And when I say a whole person, I mean everything. All of the parts that you've repressed, all the parts that you may have felt shame about, or that were embarrassing, or were just like not acceptable, or were just not safe for you to be wherever you were growing up, or depending on your parents' temperament and everything, you may have not been able to show your full self, or you were like told you were too much. And so you, from a very young age again, learn to kind of stuff those parts of yourself down and just tuck them away. And what happens a lot of the time is that instead we develop these personas. So you may have different personas based on different circumstances in your life. You might have like a work persona, a friends persona, I don't know, like public speaker persona, a YouTube persona, whatever, right? You can have these different personas that are sort of like the parts of yourself that are accepted, the parts that you've been praised for, or been like, told that is very acceptable, or, it's what kept the peace or whatever. And so we develop these personas. And what happens in life is that until we realize that our personas are not our true selves, we can think that that is all that we are, right? We can think this is just who I am, and there's nothing else, there's nothing below the surface. But that's not true, right? So that's really not true. And what's kind of the flip side, or like the other side of the persona, is, in a sense, and the part that we have to start getting in touch with as we individuate, is our shadow. And you may have heard this term before, so apologies if I'm just repeating what you already know. But if you don't know what the shadow is, it's these parts of yourself that you've repressed, that you've hidden, and it's gotten to this point essentially where you are not even aware of these parts of yourself. They are in your subconscious. They are not conscious by definition, and they tend to actually control our lives and make decisions for us a lot more than we think. Because in a lot of cases, we push these parts down, we hid them away because they felt unsafe, or they may have felt like, some part of us may have felt, if I show this part of myself, I'll be ostracized from my family, or, I won't have a bed to sleep in at night, or whatever the case may be. And yes, sometimes they are extreme, but you have to understand that a lot of these things came about when we were just children, and we were kind of at the mercy of the world. We were small, we were powerless. We didn't get to make all the decisions in our lives. Very few of them actually we got to make. We didn't get to decide where we were going in the morning. We went to school, right? It's just, you didn't get to decide what you ate for lunch. You ate what you were packed for lunch, or what your school was serving, or nothing if you forgot your lunch on the bus. Um, but yeah, essentially what happens is all these parts of ourselves get stuffed down, and it's kind of like this huge disconnect happens. And the work of individuation is sort of going back and looking at these parts of ourselves and trying to understand them, trying to understand, if we can, where they came from, I guess, if you're like interested, but also understanding where they are appearing in your life. And the reason I brought up the whole dreams thing, and just kind of like, what is your dream in life? What do you want to accomplish? What's your mission? Is that I think so much of the time what is holding us back is something that is kind of below the surface. So we think it's laziness. We think it's that we don't have enough clarity, whatever the reason, right? We can logic our way out of this every single time and just keep pushing it back and back and back. But the truth of the matter is that life is not predictable, right? You can think that you are going to do this one thing, right? You can think, I'm going to write this fantasy book, and then actually you release a short story, and that felt a lot better, and then you start getting comments and deals with publishers or whatever, and then you kind of end up there. Because I think that when you do kind of step into the shallows of your dreams or your passion or your mission, whatever you want to call it, you start being guided through what feels good, yes, what's going on inside, but I think also like by the external world a little bit, kind of like and by this I don't necessarily only mean how people react to it, but just more kind of like when you step in, I think when you step into the place that you're supposed to be in, like the space that you're supposed to occupy, that your like soul or whatever came here to occupy, things just kind of start aligning and just working out. And we hear this over and over again, right? But anyway, the reason I kind of bring this up, and I really think that it plays a huge part in our lives, and we have to start reckoning with it and actually contacting it. And part of the reason I love this concept of individuation, and I love Carl Jung, is like he was also super into dreams, obviously, since dreams are a great way to access your subconscious. And I'm a dreams girl. I love dreams. I love recording them. I love analyzing them. I love kind of like the messages they bring, the crazy metaphors, like how one tiny symbol can like bring on an onslaught of just ideas and just clicks in our brains and everything like that. And I feel like I started having dreams during a period of my life where I was feeling very, very lost. So I think I was at this point, again, I can't go back into the past and really ask myself these questions, obviously, but I think that I was in a phase where I was all persona, in a sense. Like I was just what the world expected of me, and I had no idea what else I was. And I felt that disconnect. I felt that sense of unease of just being like, this can't be it, right? I feel like there's this pull inside of me, but I don't really understand it. And also I'm so scared to like pursue it. I'm so scared to go into it and actually interact with it. And speaking of dreams, I actually had a dream a few months ago that so clearly illustrates to me kind of like this shadow and kind of what it does, and the, I guess, consequences of not communicating with that part of ourselves. And so let me just kind of briefly illustrate this dream. But it was basically a dream where I was in a school, which right away is kind of interesting, right? A school, place of learning. In my head too, the school was kind of like my brain, my essence, my mind, whatever you want to call it. And so I was in this school, and I was part of this group that was basically fighting against something that was slowly eating away at the school and the people that were there as well. And so what was basically happening is that there was this like fungus, something alive that was slowly consuming parts of the school. So it started with like classrooms, and then it spread like fungus does, spread and kept kind of like consuming until there was less and less rooms that were safe or that were places we could go. And in all of these decayed rooms, there was, like just remnants of what was there before. So there was like old desks that were half decayed and old writing on the chalkboards and stuff like that. And my role in the dream was that I was the chosen one. And stay with me here, because this is not meant to be like a self-aggrandizing statement or anything. It's just, it was my dream. So of course I was the chosen one. And this had been a battle that had been ongoing for years, like kind of us trying to catch the decay, trying to push it back. And then our team of people sort of like, slowly getting smaller and smaller as some people lost to the fight and became part of the decay themselves. What was going on in the dream was that, the team was getting smaller, and then the decay was kind of like winning. It was taking over more and more of the school, and I felt quite discouraged in the dream about that. Even though I knew people kept telling me I was the chosen one, I didn't believe it, I think. I just didn't, and especially since it felt like in my dream, I don't know if it was actually ever said out loud, but it felt like in the dream, my power was to bring light, which I was like, how does light defeat this, right? Like, this is so much bigger than just light. But anyway, so I was in this place, there was decay. And so the reason I bring this dream up, and what ended up happening in the dream was that I think I ended up leaving and coming back in and being like kind of ready. And that's where the dream ended. But the reason I bring this up is because I really feel like that decay was the shadow. Because not that the shadow is bad or anything. It's not bad at all. It's just these parts that we have maybe labeled as bad, but they are not bad, right? They're just part of the human experience. They're just part of who we are. And basically the fact that the decay was spreading, like I'm like in the dream, I guess it was bad, but I don't think the shadow is necessarily bad. But what I do think where the connection comes in for me is that it was eating away at parts of my life that I was kind of unable, it was coming from all different directions. Imagine this as like a big maze like school where there was like hallways and classroom and more, some classrooms connected to more hallways, and it was just like this big labyrinth sort of thing. So there was no way for our small skeletal team to be able to get everywhere and save everybody. And so it's basically, again, it's the subconscious, right? Like I've heard it said, I don't remember the percentage, but something like 95% or 85% or something of us is like unconscious, and our conscious mind is only a very, very small percentage. So we think we're in control, but actually the subconscious controls us a lot more than we would like. And so in the dream, it was kind of like I felt like I was losing the battle to the subconscious, right? I wasn't in control as much as I would have liked to be. I wasn't able to save my friends. And I think that's what forming a connection to the shadow and not looking at the shadow ends up doing, right? It estranges us from our dreams, from people in our lives. We may have, these very intense reactions to people that cause us to lose friendships or relationships or family members or things, right? We might have a very reactionary the thing that happens to us that causes us to have loss in our lives, and that loss starts to accumulate and we might feel like it's out of our control, right? Kind of like how I felt in the dream. This is out of my control. I cannot be everywhere all at once. But what was interesting about the dream is that what my power was to bring light. And you can take light in this context, I think, as awareness and kind of just like putting the focus, right? What does light do when you bring light onto like a spotlight, for example? It casts sort of like a, a focus on whatever you're beaming that light onto, right? What happens when you turn on a light in a room? All of a sudden you can see everything and kind of just like be able to actually analyze what you're seeing. And so I think that in this dream, it was kind of like a shadow work sort of dream where it was like, all right, all of these things that you're not attending to, that you're not paying attention to, that you're not casting your light upon, are causing ill effects onto your life that you feel, obviously, because you do feel loss. You do feel the loss of, and the regret too, right? Sometimes when you have these sorts of reactions that you wish you didn't have, you might have regret about that, but it's too late. Like the thing's been done. And so, I think that really kind of ties into this whole shadow thing, because that is essentially, as I said, what the shadow does. So we are not aware of these parts, and we are not aware of what they're trying to do for us as well. Kind of like what I said, how a lot of the time we have almost these like defense mechanisms in place that were formed long before our adult lives, and that they were meant to protect us. But at this point, our lives are completely different, right? We are not small, defenseless, vulnerable children anymore. We are grown-ass adults. Or we are adults, and there are still some things that are out of our control, right? We may not like who's in power and stuff like that, but we do have much more control over our own personal lives and what we do on the day-to-day, and kind of our choices and our actions and our words. And we also have kind of like our critical thinking and also our past life experience, right? We now have, like, I'm well into my 30s now, and I have over 30 years of experience of being me and kind of seeing the consequences of my actions, like places where I feel like, oh, I could have done better there, or like not necessarily better in the sense that I could have been more successful or whatnot, but kind of like knowing what I know now, I would have handled that situation differently. I feel like my reaction at the time was very, very much out of my control, or I just kind of let things slide rather than kind of stepping in as the adult and kind of deciding more clearly. And I'm not saying that by that I would have, necessarily changed my life. What I'm saying is that a lot of the time we kind of just let our shadow protect us, kind of like it's the parent and we're the kid, and we're like the defenseless kid, and it's making all the choices for us unconsciously. And we are left to deal with the consequences of that. So I think it's like, it's the work of a lifetime, as I said at the beginning. I really don't think that this is something you're like, all right, I'm going to do 1 year of individuating and then I'm going to be done, and I can move on with my life. I think that it is something that needs to happen every time we sort of encounter a shadow side. And I think a lot of the time our shadow is things that we avoid, things that, are just moments where we really start feeling like that wasn't me. And it's not something you can ask like ChatGPT, like, hey, what part of me is me and what part of me is like my conditioning and kind of like, yeah, these protective stories or the script that I was handed down through whatever, like my parents or again, just anyone who was of influence to me as a kid, as I was growing up. And again, just put things in perspective, you being young, having very little power over what happened to you. And, you know, if you take that point of view as you encounter these obstacles in your life, kind of like wanting to start something, wanting to write your book and stuff, like if you start thinking like, why am I not writing this book? And you start actually asking yourself, like, why is this? Because I don't think most of the time it is laziness or that it is needing to have it all figured out. Because I think we know that there's no way, it's just not possible. Like it is just an easy way out, right? It's a quick little bit of rationality. We just, you know, oh, it's because of this. And then we can let it go and let it continue. Because I don't think our shadow is like, it's quite, it's kind of like the decay in my dream, right? It wasn't a big monster attacking me or something very, very obvious. It was something that was slowly eating at me or eating at my mind or eating at my soul and slowly consuming. So it's very, very subtle. And in fact, like in the dream, like I couldn't even map. I didn't know where the decay was because it was just so kind of everywhere, right? And so it's really hard to see it at face value because it's not going to say, no, don't do that. It's going to say, oh, like just wait a little bit more, like just wait a little longer, just put that off another week or two, or you can do that next year, right? Like you don't need to do that right now. It's not a priority, or you're just not ready yet. Like you'll feel ready eventually, or next year, you know, like your kids are going to be older and you have more time, they'll be in school. There's always an excuse. Like that's the thing, there's always going to be a rational excuse for not doing something. And if you start like actually seeing that and kind of challenging it and being like, what is actually going on? Right? Because I think like in my case, for example, how I've been putting this off for a really long time, starting my own YouTube channel and recording these videos. I think there's a real fear of being seen for me. I think that being seen felt dangerous to my younger self. I think I didn't feel like I had parents that were, a little volatile, very high emotion, and I feel like most of the time I preferred to be on my own. I preferred to be quiet. I preferred to I remember hiding in my closet and having like my toys set up there because nobody could yell at me if my toys were safely tucked away, and if it was messy in the back of my closet, nobody would know, right? Or nobody would care. Whereas if my mess was in my room, I could get yelled at and stuff. So I learned to be hidden and tucked away and not be seen. And you can see how that kind of like shadow side of me, this being seen as bad or being seen like I should not do that, it's not safe. You can see how that would then plague me in my adult life, where I can be as messy as I want now. Like I can say stuff and handle the comebacks, and I can handle somebody yelling at me, or I can handle it. Like I'm not going to enjoy it. Obviously nobody enjoys getting yelled at, but I'm just saying like it's not gonna feel like the end of the world as it may have when I was a kid, because as a kid, wild imagination, lies that you believe, you kind of believe everything at face value. So you might I still remember some lies about things like as silly as Santa Claus, right? If you're like, how many of us heard that? If you're bad, Santa Claus won't come and he won't bring you presents and you'll be on the naughty list, like all of these things. And I think as an adult, you can see that and be like, oh, that's cute, or that's hilarious, or oh, like a little problematic, but okay, like it's just part of the childhood fantasy or something. But I think that we forget that as kids, like fantasy and reality are not as clearly separate, right? They overlap, and there's so many things that I remember about my childhood that I thought were very real, but as an adult, I can see that was not real. And I think when you start looking at all of that, you can understand why these shadow sides of yourself got developed as a protective means or as a way to, keep you safe and keep you thriving and keep you alive, basically, because you didn't know, you didn't have all the life experience and the power of adulthood or of being an adulthood, to be able to tell, like, oh, that's not actually going to happen, right? Like, or just loud footsteps are no longer like your dad being angry. It's just like somebody who walks loudly, or, so there's all of these things. And like you might start to pay attention really to the things that, I know it's an overused word, but trigger you, things that like cause you to have a reaction that seems a little extreme or a little bit like, that might not be how you think you would react. And I know that's really, really vague, but it's because this work is so individual. Like, nobody is going to have the same shadow as you. And so it's not just clear cut and very obvious what you need to do. It is really the work of like sifting through your own psyche and through your own reactions and through your own decisions and through your own past, and kind of just like there's a real big work of being like, is this me or is this not me? And what I mean by that is like when you have a thought, and a lot of our thoughts, right, they just kind of appear in our heads. We don't necessarily decide, I'm going to have this thought, and then we have the thought. They just kind of appear. So you might see something and immediately think of your aunt or whatever, and somebody else will see something and they'll think of, the appointment they have on Tuesday. I'm just saying that like different things cause us each to have different reactions. And so start paying attention to those reactions and the voices in your head and the things that are being said to you. So things like, oh, wait till later and all that. And start being like, is this actually me? Is this something I actually believe? Is this something I actually think? Or is this something that was passed down to me? So again, this seems to be passed down to you from your culture, your environment, your parents, your teachers, the babysitters, like other slightly older kids that influenced you, the media, right? There's like so many things that were just programming us as kids. And now as adults, it is our job and our responsibility to take a look at that. And like, again, this is not something you should rush. This is something that you really want to be doing a little bit kind of every day when you can, or when these things happen and you notice them. Because like I said, like shining the light on them, that putting the spotlight on these things is going to start revealing them to you. And then I think the decay can kind of, go away. Like fungus generally doesn't thrive well when it's exposed to light. And so you can start reclaiming parts of yourself and and accepting them too, and seeing that you don't need to be all good. If that makes sense. Like, you don't need to follow what was taught, like as being a good person or being being a people pleaser is the safe way to go or whatever. Like, there's so many things that you may do that you may not like, and that they're very automatic. And by starting to look at these things and seeing them from the perspective of, this is a mechanism put in place by my subconscious that was meant to protect me, and I need to have a conversation with it, right? I need to start teaching it by doing a lot of the time. I think by, this is now my 9th video, I think, and it feels a lot scarier than my first video felt, and I feel like I'm slowly retraining that part of myself that says being seen is not safe, to be like, actually, you've been seen now 9 times, you've posted 9 of these videos, and nothing bad has happened. You're still intact. You have all your limbs. You've had dinner every night, like you've still got a roof over your head. No one has come knocking on your door, like screaming at you, or none of that has happened. And I know that can happen on the internet. Obviously, like, this might not be the best example, but I think that in a sense it is retraining me, because even, like I said, even if those things do happen, I can handle them, right? Like I might be a little bummed out if I get like a really negative comment or something for a little bit, right? Emotions just do be, they just are like that. So but I can handle it as an adult, and I can sort of slowly retrain or at least be in communication, like I said, with these shadow aspects of myself and not seeing them as bad, not seeing this, it's so annoying that I'm so scared of being seen. It's kind of like, oh, I have this protective mechanism that tells me being seen is not a safe thing for me. So, but I think actually that being seen would be okay. And so let's kind of like let's work together and let's put that theory to the test and see what actually happens if I'm seen. And I think over time we can start, like I said, dropping away and understanding ourselves on such a deeper level, because I don't know if you ever completely get rid of these big shadow things. Like, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is all about integration. It's about letting them be a part of you, but no longer letting them kind of govern you in secret, right? When you see a reaction coming, you know that reaction, that, oh, that's that shadow bit, right? Like, oh, there's my shadow popping up again. How do I deal with this in a much less reactionary and more like proactive, and it's all about taking back parts of yourself, right? All parts of yourself, not letting anybody hide under the floorboards anymore. Like, just letting them all be part of you. And I'm not gonna lie, like, it is hard work, and it's gonna be, if you do take this challenge on for yourself, or if you're already in it, like, that it can bring a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety, maybe even bouts of like depression. So yeah, if you have to work with mental health specialists to get through it, that's perfectly understandable. But I think that, yeah, like, over time, the benefits outweigh the cost, and you might end up feeling a little bit outcast. Like, Carl Jung even said that some people who do go through individuation sometimes kind of pull away from life in general, and I feel like I have. For a lot of my life, I've kind of just pulled away because I had such a deep desire to understand myself, and I felt like the influence of the world was too much. And now I'm coming back into it because I feel ready, and now I actually see sort of my reactions to the world as useful information, right? It's just like I'm just still going on this journey, and I'm letting those things happen, even though they may feel scary. Feelings are like waves, they just pass through us, and so we can't let that stop us anymore. Like, once we know this, we cannot let this stop us anymore from becoming who we're meant to be, and just like becoming the person that was meant to live through us. And again, you can keep your personas for work or specific situations if you must, but even that, I think, becomes harder and harder, and you might find yourself feeling more isolated or weird. But again, this is just something I think that you learn to embrace, and I do think that there are people out there who are fully embracing themselves, or at least a lot more than the majority. And I think they live much fuller lives, right? They're not out there pretending to be somebody else all the time. They are out there knowing that if they are pretending, knowing that they still have a true self, a real self that they are in constant communication with, and that is pushing through the fears, pushing through the discomforts to actually claim what they are meant to live. So that's kind of my little ramble today. So yeah, if you are somebody who has been holding back from starting and doing something, I would say start sifting through those things that you're telling yourself, and start trying to understand these sides of yourself that you have not allowed yourself to be. And start letting them pop up and have conversations with them and listen to your dreams. Dreams are so like cool. They tell you so much stuff. So listen to your dreams, look at the symbols in them. Like all of that is working with the subconscious. And you will find that your life, you gain such clarity. You like, it just becomes, I don't want to say easier necessarily, because again, I don't think that's the point, but it does feel a lot more, it does feel a lot better to be yourself, that rather than, and this is coming from somebody who, at 25 was kind of having this like this quarter life crisis about who the heck am I? And this individuation thing has been one of the most useful concepts for me. Yeah, and like I said, don't rush the process. It is a lifelong journey that you will be interacting with your shadow side and all that probably for the rest of your life. And yeah, it is just, but it is so rewarding, even if sometimes it is uncomfortable, the outcome of it and the person you get to be afterwards, right? Like the person that steps out is no longer this sort of reactionary, gonna randomly push this person away because I'm scared of being abandoned, right? Like all of those things that we hear about that we do become something that you can actually work with. So I hope this was helpful. As always, if you've got anything to say, any comments or whatever, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to leave those comments below. You can follow if you'd like to see more and hear more about this kind of stuff. And yeah, so until next time, I will see you then. Bye.